Hi, and welcome to the Love How Deep podcast with Brian and Heather Mayer. Our purpose is to equip married couples like you with resources that rely on the transformative power of God's Word to strengthen your relationship.
Well, we are back for episode number 2. We survived our first episode, so what do you think? You think we can do better this time?
Maybe we can do better. Okay. I mean, let's just do it again. It really was fun.
Okay,
and
I
hopefully
agree.
People are going to learn some things from this and, be able to take some nuggets away from it.
I agree.
Apply to their marriage.
I agree. All right. And maybe you and I will learn something, actually.
I think so. And, in the meantime, we're just going to keep talking into these microphones in this podcast studio, a.k.a. our closet.
We're not supposed to give that away. We're supposed to
we're working in the closet?
People think we need to be in some palatial estate, with just surrounded by beautiful, ornate paintings and...
Well, perhaps we are. Perhaps this closet is that large.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
But the thing I like about this is it's very intimate. We're sitting very close together. So
I like intimacy.
Yeah, and we can't get upset with each other when we sit close, right?
Well, let's hope we don't.
All right.
Have we babbled and rambled too much?
I think we might have.
Y'all, please don't tune us out. Just ignore our silliness.
Right. So
we're going to get to it.
Yeah. Why don't we go ahead and get into the episode today? So we are going to talk more about forgiveness. We're talking about this a lot lately because we believe it is very important, and it's really tough for a marriage to go anywhere when forgiveness is not present. And we all know, just as in Heather and my marriage, just as it is in yours, things come up, things happen. Things create divides, things break our emotional connection, if you will, and the only way back from that, well, number one is really God, but number two is forgiveness, but He models it for us. So today we are going to talk about forgiveness, and we're calling this episode Forgiveness, Fact, and Fiction, and the episode is broken into 4 parts. We're going to talk a little bit about, what type of issues create the need for forgiveness, and then after we talk a little bit about that, we will get into the fiction about forgiveness, the myths, the things that people seem to believe that make it hard for forgiveness to happen. We're going to talk about the truths of what forgiveness really is, and then we've got a really powerful story about forgiveness that I think you all are going to take a lot from. So does that sound like I'm on the right track, Heather?
I think so. It sounds good.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think you were going to sort of jump start us with talking a little bit about sort of what creates the need for forgiveness, what types of issues, that type of thing.
Okay, let's go. So everyone who is in a relationship with someone, whether it be siblings or parent relationships like parent-child or you and your spouse, you're always gonna come across a time when you need to forgive each other. When you're mad, you're upset, you're angry, it could be something small or large. And if you ever meet someone who says, "Oh, we never get mad at each other, we never fight, we never have to forgive each other," they probably just don't communicate. Brian, would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's usually the case.
They never talk?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah, just kidding. Or they're lying. I don't know. But, I mean, if you're human, it happens. And you're always going to have these moments in your relationships with people when you need to forgive. And, the purpose of this podcast is for couples that are married. You're in a relationship with your spouse, but this applies to any kind of relationship that you have. So keep that in mind, too, in case, you have someone else in your life that you need to extend some forgiveness towards. Sometimes forgiveness comes down to just small issues, like perhaps someone forgets to take out the trash, or someone doesn't do the laundry when it needs to be done, or perhaps that someone that did do the laundry forgot to hang up the clothes and put them in the dryer instead and shrunk them.
Oh, who's ever done that? I don't know. Maybe some of you listening maybe have done that. I've never done that, I don't think. Oh, actually, yes, I have.
Yeah. Y'all, he's learned. Just ask. When in doubt, ask your wife. Does this go in the dryer? Yeah. So sometimes they're just small issues like that. And sadly, those could snowball to become larger issues. But I also want to mention some other large things that are very weighty, like an affair could have happened, financial betrayal could have happened, or just losing a large amount of money without communicating, about where the money's going to and that sort of thing. Those are some large things that can happen in your marriage. You wouldn't be alone, but these things do require forgiveness and letting go of the hurts that have happened. Now, sometimes when we're hurt, the feelings can, heal rather quickly or go away quickly. But sometimes these issues can linger kind of on and on. And like I said before, little things can snowball into big things. But there are a lot of reasons that certain things go away quickly and certain things kind of hang on. But I think, the point here is that when you have to forgive someone from hurting you or for hurting you, for whatever's happened in the past, you've got to look to God to help you forgive that person. And realize that God forgave us for our sins. And so we as Christians want to extend that love and forgiveness and that mercy to the other people that have hurt us. And
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I was working with a couple in my practice, and I'll try to change the details a little bit, and I won't be too long-winded, but basically the gentleman, I think, gambled away something like $40,000, and his wife didn't even know about it. And talk about a big weighty issue that you just talked about.
That's pretty big.
I mean, that's a pretty big one.
Severe.
That one was one that took quite a while to forgive, for sure. And it's something that probably lingered for quite a while.
I bet.
I think probably even after they worked with us or worked with me in my practice. But so thank you for that. Mm-hmm. And that will take us into talking a little bit about the fiction about forgiveness. And I know, Heather, you and I, when we're working with couples and we talk about forgiveness, when we introduce the topic, a lot of times we get these blank stares.
We do.
We get like a little bit of pushback, defensiveness.
Yes.
I don't know if there's some other reactions I'm missing, but it usually is not a very welcome conversation at first. And I think the reason for that is because a lot of times people think forgiveness is something other than what it really is. And so that's what we're going to talk about here in just a second. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about what it is not to help you understand what it is not, so you don't get so hung up on, well, this is too hard and this is too much and why would I want to do this type of thing. So, and real quickly too, the reason that we're starting with what forgiveness is not, I had this epiphany the other day. Heather and I, we play this word game on our phone, right?
Yes.
Are we allowed to say the name of the word game, or is that like giving them free advertising? I don't know.
Well, perhaps we won't, but it's a word game, and you have to guess the letters to come up with the word.
Right.
Y'all
There's
know what
5.
that is.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a 5-letter word, and I think you have 6 chances. Mm-hmm. And I remember I would get so upset when we would do the first word, and I would get nothing. Mm-hmm. And then you probably, you being the teacher, kind of helped me see this in a new and a different way, in that when no letters appear, what does that mean? You just eliminated 5 out of 26 letters. That's almost 25% of the alphabet.
Exactly. You know what not to do now.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so that's why we're starting with what forgiveness is not. And so the first thing that we want to talk about is that forgiveness is not forgetting. You're a human being. You're not going to be able to forget. We all have memories. We would like to forget. I mean, isn't that, you've probably said that to yourself a lot. Like, gosh, I wish I could just forget this ever happened. And I know that would be nice, but again, unfortunately we can't. And the nice thing is that that's not what forgiveness is about. And sometimes I think it's okay to remember because we learn from it and we're able to move on. We're able to do something a little bit different. So that's really the first sort of fiction about forgiveness. I don't know, Heather, you got another one for us?
Yeah. So forgiveness does not mean that what was done to you was okay. Doesn't mean that it's okay. So just because you hear, on this podcast or from your pastor or from other people that, oh, well, you should forgive, that might make your brain think, then that's okay that they hurt me. Won't they just do it again? Well, forgiveness is not saying it's okay. It's not condoning their behavior or excusing what they've done. It's just choosing to let go of these negative emotions that you have towards them and, move forward in a positive way.
Yeah. And the next one is kind of goes a little bit along with condoning. It's forgiveness is not allowing it. It's not allowing it to happen again. It's not being okay that it happens again, which is condoning is all about being okay with the past issue that happened. Allowing is more looking into the future and saying the same thing. It's like, I'm not, because I'm forgiving you for this thing that you did, doesn't mean that I'm okay if you do it again.
Right.
So I think that's a big one there. I don't know if there's anything else to really say about that one.
No, I think that's really good. I think this next one is a huge one. I think it's such a misconception that people have. Just because you have forgiven someone does not mean that you have to trust them again. Because trust is earned. Forgiveness is a gift that you give someone, but trust is earned. And if someone has broken your trust, I mean, that is huge. You're going to harbor a lot of anger and resentment, bitterness inside of your heart because someone has really, really, really hurt you. Like they've cut you to the core. And it doesn't mean that you're going to trust them again. It doesn't mean that that relationship is even going to be restored again, but you can still forgive that person. You can still forgive them.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say about trust was kind of a neat thing that I heard recently. It was by this, I guess he's an evangelist. His name is Jimmy Evans. He said something along the lines of trust is earned in drops, but it's lost in buckets.
That is really good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that says to me is that trust takes a long time to build, but again, you can demolish it rather quickly.
Yeah.
Kind of like those, what are those shows on HGTV when they renovate a home? They can demolish in probably one day, but it might take like 8 weeks to rebuild the kitchen.
Right.
Or whatever.
Because they've demolished some walls and some cabinetry, but months go by before you see your
that's
kitchen.
Exactly right.
It's a long time.
Yeah. So I guess in some ways that's also a warning to us all. If we're going to think about doing something to damage trust, we might want to think twice about it because it's going to take 10 times as long to rebuild it as we did to tear it down. So,
right.
Along the lines of trust, another one that I want to talk about is healing. Forgiveness is not healing. Healing, just like trust, is also a process. And I think sometimes when trust is built and when it comes back to where it needs to be, healing kind of follows that. And so just think about those two things kind of coming together or really being together, so to speak. And it's just like, when you have a physical bone break or a cut.
My foot, when I broke my foot.
Right. You've had how many bones that you've broken?
Oh, too many to count.
Oh, my goodness.
But they don't heal instantaneously.
Yeah.
That's a sad thing.
I don't know that I've ever had a bone officially be diagnosed as being broken. So, but I'll have to think about that. But yeah, Heather, you have had many more. So you know a little bit more about physical healing probably than I do. Yeah. But again, that is a process. And one thing I will say real quick about trust and healing, a lot of times I see this in the person that has caused the harm. They just become very impatient. Like, can't we just get on? Can't we move on? I want to, move forward from this.
Yeah, that's true.
And we see it a lot, and it's kind of unfortunate. We've even seen it in some people that have had affairs. They bring up the affair, and then they wonder why the person that they just told can't seem to get over it in 3 days.
Right.
So, yeah, which can be difficult.
I mean, we've seen that even with us, not the affair, but but even with us when, we've gotten into an argument. I know y'all can't believe that, right? But when we've gotten into an argument, one of us is definitely ready to kind of heal and move on before the other one. So we have to be patient with the other person and let them take the time that they need.
Yep, that's right.
To heal and forgive.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think we've got one more fictional piece of forgiveness that we want people to be aware of. Is that right?
Yes. This one is super important as well. Just because you have chosen to forgive someone does not mean that you're going to be reconciled with them. Does not mean that you need to continue that relationship. If it is an abusive type of relationship, you're not going to be reconciled for your safety. It's just not, that is not wise. And it doesn't, sometimes I think, we think that just because, they've said, I'm sorry, and you say, I forgive you, that means that you go back to life as it was before. But you are still, if you've been hurt that much, you are still dealing with trust issues. You're dealing with God allowing your heart to heal and your mind to heal. And reconciliation is not always the thing that's going to happen just because you've said, I forgive you. So I hope that makes sense to you, that those are two totally different things. And reconciliation is certainly something you can work towards, but it's not an instantaneous thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And one thing I just thought of as you were talking, Heather,
Yeah.
it can also be a situation where maybe there's something has happened between you and somebody that's unfortunately passed away.
That's
It's
good.
not, yeah, it's not that you're making the actual choice to not reconcile. It's unfortunately you just can't. But I still think it's
Yeah.
important that we forgive. If somebody's done something to us and they've passed on, I think it still is important for us to forgive them when we feel ready, when we feel it's
Yes.
right. Now,
Yeah. I
it,
think so. I
yeah,
think you still have to go through that process of forgiving them, even though you're never going to be able to have that closure with them or be able to tell them. Perhaps the person's never even said, I'm so sorry, but we're still called to forgive. And to go through that process is still such an important thing, because if you don't, you're holding on to these things that will eat away at you like a cancer. And you don't want that. You don't want that to happen. I mean, yeah.
hmm
I'm a little passionate about this
yeah, and
subject. Yeah.
and I would say on the opposite side, if you have done something to wrong somebody that's passed away, obviously you can no longer go to them and ask for forgiveness. But I still
Hmm.
believe, I know Heather believes this as well, that you can go to God and
Yes.
just ask God, please forgive me for what I've done. And I believe that forgiveness can come that way as well. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Well, we have covered all about what forgiveness is not and the fiction about forgiveness. So hopefully this has kind of given you a little sigh of relief. Maybe you're taking a little bit of a breath and realizing, oh, okay, maybe this isn't as hard as I'm making it out to be.
Right.
Um,
And maybe you're just kind of taking it all in and processing through, and you might want to rewind and listen to it again. Maybe take some
yeah.
notes and just to help you process through,
hmm
because so many of us have had just kind of the wrong views of what forgiveness is and isn't, and so that's a lot to kind of undo
Yeah,
in your
that's right.
mind.
Yeah, and if you're
Yeah.
listening to this on your own and you are married or in a relationship, I would encourage you to, just like Heather said, I mean, rewind this and then listen to it together. Don't elbow each other and say, are you listening? And are you getting this? That doesn't really seem to help. But just genuinely listen to it together, I think would be very helpful. So, all right. So, we are going to now talk about what forgiveness is. We're going to tell you about the facts about forgiveness, not the fiction any longer.
Yeah.
And again, I feel like it's much simpler than the fiction. And really, the big thing is that forgiveness is just simply letting go of anger, resentment, and the desire for revenge. And really, all of these things take place in between our ears and that thing inside of our head called our brain.
Hmm.
And those are common human emotions: anger, resentment. So it's understandable that we have them. But the problem comes in is, well, what do we do with them? Do we linger with them? Do we think about them again? Do we proceed down this bad path of, having bad thoughts about what we want to happen to this person? And then that's where things kind of go into grudges, so to
Yeah.
speak. So, and really, it just becomes very unhealthy when we just, and really, it's almost like we've made a prison for ourselves. I think. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I guess one other quick thing, it's probably good to, okay, well, now that we're trying to get rid of the negative emotions, well, let's change it into something that's positive. Is there any way that the person that maybe has wronged us, is there any part of it that we can have a little bit of empathy for them,
Hmm.
show them a little bit of compassion? Again, it's not that we're okay or we're excusing what was done, but just looking at this person as, hey, they're a human being and they've messed up. And I think that can be an incredible form of forgiveness and healing. And then
Yeah.
I don't know, you have anything else to say about what forgiveness is that would be important?
It's a choice. Y'all, it is a choice that we have to make. And God has to help us make that choice, because if you're so torn up inside, it's going to be a battle in your head, like to where God says I need to forgive, and then you've got the other side of your brain or whatever saying I can't let this go. I cannot forgive that person. They did something so horribly wrong. I cannot let that go. I can't forgive them. But God says it's a choice and it's something I must do. And I'm a Christian. I'm following Christ. I need to do this, but I can't. And you have this internal struggle. Y'all, I've been there. I have been there. And it was a choice that I had to make. When my friend told me, you're going to have to forgive this person that hurt you. And I said, not today. Not doing it today. I knew that I would have to. And I did. But I would love to say that, all you have to do is just say at one time, I forgive you, and everything's great from there. It's all rosy. But you know what? If I'm honest with you, and I am, that it's a day-to-day decision, that Satan's going to use your brain as his playground, and he's going to remind you of all the things that person did. And it's just going to be, playing reruns in your brain. And you're just going to get worked up over it, all over it again. And so you have to recognize that and say, oh no, I choose to forgive. God help me. I choose to forgive. You have to make that choice every single day, sometimes every minute of every day, so that what you're saying eventually goes to your heart. From what you know to do in your brain down to your heart. And you've truly, truly forgiven that person. And it could be instantaneous, but sometimes it's not. And I just say, don't give up. Just continue to follow Christ on that and his lead of forgiving us. And so we want to forgive others as well. But keep following Christ on that and letting those things go and just saying, God, here, take this. I don't want it. Take this hurt. Take this pain. Take this unforgiveness and all of this bitterness inside of me. Take these things out of me, and just ask God to replace it with peace and love and mercy for that person that's hurt you. But it is a choice. And I think that's such an important thing that we have to know. It's a choice that we make.
That's right. And I think you've hit on it, but I believe in some ways it's a choice and it's a process.
Yes.
I think you said this already, but it's a choice inside of our brain, but it's really a process inside of our heart.
It is.
So we can, your friend can come up to you and say, you just need to forgive. You just need to forgive and move on. And it's like, we all know that. Yeah, we all know that. Of course I know that. But sometimes our heart is not ready. But still, we would encourage you to still do that act of forgiving with your mouth or whatever it needs to be, or in your mind. And eventually it will go to your heart. And do you want to say anything else about that, or should we move on to something else that I wanted to talk about?
Yeah.
All right. So I think these are going to be some analogies that we've picked up on over the years that have really helped sort of, at least unforgiveness, really sink in for me, and to be something that I don't want, because it's kind of a waste of time, takes a lot of energy, it's unhealthy. Right. One of those.
And I think that these give you a nice little visual.
Yeah.
When you think about unforgiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is, and we don't know who said all of these, but unforgiveness is like allowing someone to stay rent free in your brain, and then sometimes they don't even realize that they're living there. So you're giving them this posh little apartment in your brain.
They're set up.
Yeah, and they're living their best life somewhere else, and you're eating up precious time thinking about them. So yeah, think about that one. We got another one.
Yeah. Unforgiveness is like taking a poison pill, hoping that the other person is going to die from it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We know that won't happen.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Right. And then another one sort of along the same lines as the poison pill, but it's like setting yourself on fire, hoping that the other person dies from the smoke. And it's almost like you're doing it purposefully. You know what? I'm going to set myself on fire and I'm going to watch you die from the smoke.
Right.
It's like, no, that's not going to happen. But that's basically what we're doing when we harbor unforgiveness.
Yeah, I think those last two really kind of show the damage that you're doing to yourself when you harbor that unforgiveness, of how that tears you up. And you might not see it on the outside, but you're going to eventually see it on the inside with your mind and with your physical body, and the ulcers that can happen, or
Mm-hmm.
anxiety over this kind of stuff. It's like you're just hurting yourself, and the other
Mm-hmm.
person is likely not even aware,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they are but they don't care. So
That's right. That's
yeah.
right.
Hmm.
And so, with that, we want to turn to a pretty powerful story about forgiveness. And I think you're really going to get a lot out of this. I think it's going to really help kind of drive the point of forgiveness home.
Yeah.
Did you say that's right, Heather?
This is so powerful. I
Yeah.
mean, I,
Do you want me to introduce it?
yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So it's about his name's Louis Zamperini. He's was in World War II, I
He
believe.
was.
He was in the
Yes.
Olympics and met
Hmm.
Hitler.
Hmm.
I don't know. You want to tell a little bit more about it?
Yeah. So he was an Italian immigrant, and just he had a very, very rough life. Just at a very young age, he had to fight to survive. He was picked on by children because he didn't know English. And then he started drinking and smoking as a young child. I mean, clearly that shows he's very troubled. A lot of stuff going on with him emotionally. When he was 19, he became a track star and qualified for the Berlin Olympics, which is when he met Adolf Hitler. He set records in college. And then when the war started, World War II, he joined the Army Air Corps. So his plane was shot down during the war. He and two other men survived the crash, and they lived out in the Pacific Ocean, just floating around for 47 days. He was finally rescued, but he was rescued by the Japanese and taken captive for the next 2 years, and he lived in a POW camp. Zamperini was beaten nearly every single day and left unconscious. And most of these beatings were done by this man known as the Bird. So once World War II ended, Zamperini was released and he was sent home. And you might think, oh, this is great news for him. He can move on with his life. He's no longer a prisoner. But he was. He's a prisoner in his own mind because he endured 2 years of these beatings and this treatment. And, as I said in the beginning, his fighting and his just anger really started as a little boy. So he did move on with his life in a sense that he got married, but he was an alcoholic. He suffered from nightmares, and he dwelled on getting even with the men who beat him at the POW camp. And one night it got so bad that he woke up and he was strangling his wife, thinking that she was the Bird that was the one doing the beatings. So his wife planned on divorcing him until she went to hear Billy Graham speak. And while she was there, she received Christ in her heart. And then she begged her husband to please go and hear Billy Graham speak, that it could change his life. So he finally agreed. And yes, he accepted Christ. His life was changed. He gave up alcohol. He was able to forgive the men in the POW camp that beat him. His nightmares stopped. And he even sought out those men that beat him, and he visited them in the prison and shared Christ with them. And I have goosebumps. That just blows my mind. That blows my mind that he was able to do that, really, because he had Christ in him. Zamperini told them that he forgave them for the torture and the beatings. His marriage was saved. His life was changed. He started out as this angry child who fought everyone, and he was beaten as a young man. And then he received God's love and grace and forgiveness, and he understood what that forgiveness meant, and he was able to show that same love and grace and forgiveness to the ones who hurt him. And we just hope this story inspires you to be more ready to forgive when the time comes to do so. Because, yeah, we've had some bad things happen to us, but oh my gosh, if you compare it to what Zamperini went through, wow, if he can forgive, maybe I can look inside myself and ask God to help me forgive too.
Yeah. And as you were kind of talking through that, I was trying to think, how would I have even reacted with all of these things that he went through? I don't even know, to be honest, because I don't even have anything in my life that I could even remotely compare to this. And I guess I really just come back to well, as long as I have God in my heart and realize that he first forgave me and he asks us to forgive, then I suppose at the end of the day, that's what I would want to do.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know. I can't imagine even trying to do that under my own human power. And it's obvious that he wasn't able to do it until he accepted Christ.
Right.
That's what sort of broke him free.
Yeah, that was the difference.
From all this. Yeah.
That's the difference.
So, wow. Pretty powerful. Well, I hope you have gotten something from this episode, and I hope you take what we have talked about and implement it in your own marriage and your own relationship. I think we're probably going to do some of that, I hope. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so one more thing before we go, we wanted to make you aware of, and I think it will fit right in with our episode here, is that we have a free forgiveness conversation starter guide. And the guide reviews some of what we talked a little bit about today, about what forgiveness is. Also talks a little bit about how you can talk to each other about it. And then the thing that I really love about it is that there are 20 questions that you can ask each other and really get a good feel for things like, what was forgiveness like when you were growing up as a child?
That's such a good question. Because if you didn't grow up in a family that modeled forgiveness, then you yourself don't know how to do that, because we learn from our families.
Right.
But if your spouse grew up in a family that modeled forgiveness regularly, then you two are kind of like on uneven playing fields of knowing how to do this, how to go about forgiving each other. And so if you can answer questions like this and understand each other a little bit more in a new way, that's going to go a long way.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And I think the more you know about each other, the more it can change how you feel about each other. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because if you notice that your spouse doesn't ever say that they're sorry, well, of course, your immediate reaction or immediate thought after that goes on for a while is going to be, wow, you're just very cold, you're unempathetic, you don't care. But if you learn that, oh, that was really not done when I was a child, nobody ever said sorry to me, it was never modeled, then maybe, not that I'm saying it makes it right that it doesn't happen, but at least you can say, okay, now this is why, this helps me understand. Well, this gives us a foundation, a building block for where to start with this thing. So, and you can go get that at lovehowdeep.com/2, because we're on episode 2. And we will have the link for that conversation starter in the show notes. And like I said, you can pick it up for free. It will arrive in your email inbox very quickly. And we think you'll get a lot from that. So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And I think with
That's good.
Is that about a wrap?
That is a wrap.
All right. And you know how I always like to end every episode, but marriage is not something you have, it's something you do every day. Take care until next time.